Okay, so when we talk about site resilience, I guess one of the most important things, especially nowadays, is how it relates to hazards and potentials for natural disasters. And in terms of flooding, actually the north is a little bit better off. You know. So here in the slide being shown here, I'm showing you several scenarios of elevations of floodwaters, you know, from 4 meters, 8 meters, 12 meters, and 16 meters. And as you can see, I've shown where Cloverleaf is located. Uh, the this is the impact of flooding as the elevation goes higher is felt much stronger in the western side, in the bay side, and in the northwest side. Even at the 16-meter elevation, you know, Quezon City and even Cloverleaf is still intact. No? This is shown in the next slide, where you know typically we look at the flood hazards, seismic hazards, shown in the middle figure, and even liquefaction. No? So while the entire region and the country is subject to extraordinary natural disasters, the project is located in a part of the region that is less exposed. So, in other words, when we looked at Cloverleaf and its surrounding vicinity, it's a project site that we say has good bones. You know, good bones meaning if you're referring to real estate that has a solid foundation. It's a site that has good solid foundation and which will allow you to build something exceptional. So in that sense, the site and the larger area is benefits or has good potential. The second set of criteria that we looked at is the market. You know, if we build something here, will how will the market look like? And in sometimes we take an extended view and look at the environment, the competition, etc. But for this afternoon, I just look more on the supply and demand and conditions. I was looking at my files a few days earlier, and I saw some earlier slides that I had prepared way back, you know, mid 2000s, wherein we were beginning to look at how we would expand in the north. You know. So and in our analysis at that time, these are the same exact slides, so these are not up to date. But it shows you how we were looking at the area at that time. That the demand was basically north biased. That's Quezon City, parts of Manila, Valenzuela, while supply was biased towards the south. And this is for the high-end market. And this further emphasizes the potential of the north because the demand is strong there, but the supply is in the south. In the mid to high to mid market, which we at that time we call the core mid, it's almost the same. You know, Quezon City dominates the demand, while the south dominates in terms of the supply. And there are various reasons for this. Even in the surrounding provinces, for example, you'll notice that Rizal, Cavite, Laguna, Batangas, they have a lot of the supply in terms of these are house and lots uh, compared to Bulacan, which has very little. And that's a lot of that has to do with land supply, but also because of the dominance of the Makati area. As far as the mass market is concerned, again, we have the same story, and perhaps even more so biased because here the mass market is much more sensitive to land prices. So you really can't do a lot of these projects within the metro area, so you tend to go outside. But the point here is that the north and south biases of housing demand, respectively, you know, at that time are still valid at this point. In other words, there is still that bias, but the extent to which that can be useful or can be tapped will depend on the distribution, not just of housing, but also of the jobs. And let me illustrate that in the next slide. again, this is part of the analysis that I had prepared at that time. So at that time, we looked at the where did the business and commercial activities take place, and the center of gravity of that is obviously near Makati because that is where you had the largest business district. But if you look at the center of population, which geographical area would summarize the location of the entire population of Metro Manila? It was much further north. So, in other words, from a planning point of view, the more employment, business, commercial, employment centers that you put in the north, the more people are closer to their jobs. And that means there's a higher potential for reducing the tidal commuting cost, meaning if a lot of people live in Quezon City and every day they have to go to Makati, and then in the afternoon they all have to go back. You can temper that, moderate that congestion, the more you put jobs, employment centers, commercial and business districts in the north. So this was also supported the idea that let's not just add housing, but add some of the other commercial aspects or business aspects that go into a mixed use community. So that also bolstered the idea of coming up with a project like Cloverleaf and maybe other projects similar to that. The other point about the market that I also want to highlight is that from a planning point of view, we don't usually look at individual cities and municipalities. We look at clusters, metropolitan areas, and corridors because in reality, the market extends or does not really respect political boundaries. So the way we analyze that is we look at these clusters and corridors. And now I'm jumping to the current situation now. What I'm based on the latest data, the largest metropolitan corridor outside Metro Manila is already the corridor that is anchored in the Balintawak site. It is the Malolos to Angeles, and now it has extended even up to Tarlac. The way we identify this, we look at certain characteristics, but so I won't elaborate on that. But if you look at the chart beside the table beside the map, you will see that that corridor from Bulacan to Angeles to parts of Tarlac already amounts about almost 4.2 million people. Right? And we're not even adding the other parts of Bulacan that are and Rizal in the north and the east that could add to that market. We're talking about the Montalban or Rodriguez, San Mateo area, and even the San Jose del Monte part of Bulacan. So next to Metro Manila, it's that corridor that now has the largest market. That means that if you say locate a project anywhere in this corridor, you have the potential of tapping that entire group of households within that corridor. It's not just a local individual city or municipality market that you're talking about. Um, by the way, in the south, the market there is just to compare. No? It's the market from that extends through the SLEX from San Pedro, Calamba to Lipa. That's already the corridor that we're looking at. And pretty soon, that will probably merge with the corridor all the way down to Batangas. But even then, that will still be the number of households in that corridor will be less compared to the Bulacan and Pampanga corridor. So it's a large market, and it's something that needs to be considered depending on the product, the real estate product you're contemplating. So let me now go to the third set of criteria, which is access, and this is obviously quite important for real estate. So Let me start again with the Cloverleaf site, and that to note that properties beside road interchanges have great visibility, but do not always have good local access, because as you approach the interchange, uh, direct local access becomes limited. You can't just turn left or right, once you're already into the interchange. That's why it's very visible, but do not always have good local access. Now, but as mentioned earlier, I think the Skyway, especially the Stage 3, has significantly improved local access, because uh, what it does, it gives you doorstep access to Cloverleaf and allows the North more opportunities to tap the Southern market. So increased connectivity leads to increased economic activity. That's basically the theme that we're looking at, and the planning objectives that go with the infrastructure and real estate. A second important, going down to the more local level, important development, this specific to Cloverleaf, is the acquisition and the addition of an EDSA frontage lot after the bulk of the Cloverleaf land area was acquired by Ayala. So what this lot does is it provides a direct pedestrian link with the LRT1 station, because previously that was not available. Uh, so with that, you could even have a ground and upper level connections with the LRT station. And at the ground level, you were able to add an additional road access directly to EDSA. So I think this is quite important, because it changes the significantly the options for pedestrian behavior, and in many ways that is key to what can happen from a commercial and residential point of view in any project. So it's a straight shot to the public transport. The other project that has been mentioned is the Greenways project. It's actually funded by the ADB, and it's been studied by the ADB. And here, shown in the map, this project gives Cloverleaf the potential for much more options of pedestrian linkages. So it gives you pedestrian access across EDSA and even across A. Bonifacio Avenue. So a lot more options, and in many ways, more redundancy for the locators and residents of the Cloverleaf area. I think this is also quite important, and I hope they proceed with this project soon. No? So in summary, in terms of access, uh, the Cloverleaf site already had robust uh, access infrastructure. It already had EDSA, NLEX, LRT1, and A. Bonifacio roads beside it, but this was significantly improved with Skyway 3 and the direct LRT1 link. The Greenways project should also enhance local mobility. And overall, I think the key point here is that redundancy has vastly improved. So redundancy is a key element of sustainability, and that's why this is really important as far as overall sustainable development is concerned. So the last, well, but beyond Cloverleaf, if you look at the pipeline infrastructure projects in the north, both road and rail, I think there also could have a lot of significant lead to significant opportunities and improvement in the north. As far as rail is concerned, I think the subway and the north-south commuter rail will be very important. Because again, it gives you that mass transit capability and accessibility of the north. As far as the road projects are concerned, the NLEX SLEX connector, you know, uh, is also quite important. And it's important also, even though it doesn't directly serve, say, cloverleaf, it's important because now a lot of the vehicles that don't need to pass through cloverleaf or the A Bonifacio can now go to the SLX SLX connector and bypass the entire area. In other words, it will make the skyway much more efficient from reduce congestion because traffic has more options. Those trucks and big vehicles that need to pass by the port will choose the NLEX SLEX connector and will bypass the EDSA and Cloverleaf, Balintawak, Monumento area altogether. So that benefits the the Balintawak Monumento area uh, substantially, reducing the potential traffic. From a broader perspective, another project that has been mentioned is the proposed Bulacan Airport. Now, the MRT-7 project, which is the light rail project from the Trinoma station all the way to San Jose del Monte, actually includes a connector road that connects the San Jose del Monte to the NLEX in the Marilao area. Now, if the proposed Bulacan Airport is built, then that could be extended to serve the airport, and that could have regional significance also. Again, it just makes the northern region much more vibrant in terms of opportunities for business, commerce, connectivity, not just local or regional level, but also globally. So that again, I think could be significant. So it will be interesting to see how this proposed project develops. Okay, so the last set of criteria that I wanted to bring up, although there are others, but I think these four are the most important, is scale. And when I say scale, it's that uh, you can have a great location, but if you don't have, if you only have a small parcel, then you really can't do much, you know. And if you have a large area, but it's in the middle of nowhere, it's also not as meaningful. So it's that combination. So what we do is we tend to look at a hierarchy of of uh, of scales that depend on the location and the density. So this is a summary, and this on the left side. And here, what I'd like to describe is it's not it's not a discrete description, but more of a continuum. So, for example, if you're very close to the center, then you can have a small site, and that could be good for a single project, and that could perform very well. That could have a great market because you're in the middle of a, say, in the central business district. So anywhere from maybe 1 hectare is already large if you're in the middle of a business district. But even if you're a little further away, 1 to 5, you could have a single project. It could be a multiple building project, but it could be considered a single project. Now, the further away you are from the center, then you tend to look at larger areas if available. You want to have, this will allow you to develop mixed use communities, and this is what we used to, how we described them before, but now it can be called an estate, a district. But the idea is here you combine more than just a single or two uses. So you usually want to have varieties that will allow that community to in many ways stand alone for most of the time. Although still clearly relating to the external environment. Now, much further away from that, if you say in the periphery of Metro Manila, then you're looking at you're trying to look at a much larger size, so townships from 20 to maybe even 100 hectares if it's available. And here, you're not just looking at a single community, you're looking at several, building several communities several villages with a very distinct multiple markets, several commercial areas, etc. And that in itself is a could be a township. And lastly, if you're really far away but are optimistic that infrastructure and the market will be there later on, then you're looking at a new town, a city. And here you'll have a lot of, if you can afford it, you could land bank, and you could be dealing with a lot of hundreds of hectares. That's how you fit the scale to the product to the location.